For centuries, humans have always broken frontiers into new places, new regions, new continents, and now new worlds. But we didn't just break these frontiers to explore, but to expand our influence. The 21st century is proving to be another one of those times we break one of those frontiers. While we have always treated space as the final frontier, a frontier for infinite exploration, we mistakenly view it through the lens of control and competition. The moon is the newest arena for rivalry and competition between superpowers, and control over the moon could mean control over humanity's trajectory to Mars and beyond. Countries are rushing to build bases on the moon as quickly as possible. A race has begun to try and get humans onto the moon, and countries have split into political blocs, with each bloc fighting for control over the future of human space exploration. One bloc, led by the US, plans to send humans to the moon as early as 2028 as part of the Artemis missions, the first manned missions to the moon in over 50 years. But the same framework that fuels Artemis may also be used to allow countries to do the very things international law was supposed to prevent. So why are we going to the moon now?
Let's not be naive about this.
We are in politically divided times again.
Nations work in their own interests. So we have to craft a treaty that looks at the interests of each nation.
Our quest to return to the moon and how the rules we created could be exploited for geopolitical interests starts with understanding the current geopolitical climate. What does the moon mean to all of us, and why does it hold both geopolitical and symbolic value? For thousands of years, cultures all across the world have seen this ball and came up with stories to explain its significance and behavior. And for thousands of years, this object had a lot of symbolic value. People wondered whether this object had beings living on it, and how far away this object is from Earth, and whether we could travel to it in the future. Fast forward to the 1960s, and it's the Cold War. These two countries, the United States and the Soviet Union, are on a race, and they want to prove that their economic system, capitalism or communism respectively, is better. And the US sets an ambitious goal. They choose to go to the moon and do the other things, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And they plan to do it in just 10 years. The symbolic value for the moon skyrockets. All of a sudden, everyone isn't just thinking about this faraway object as some ball in the night sky, but a world that humans will explore, reach, and potentially colonize. And they did. The US sent astronauts to the moon, returning them back to Earth and achieving the first moon landings in 1969. But now, the moon doesn't just represent symbolic value. Nowadays, it has monetary and geopolitical value as well. And it starts with this. This hunk of metal is called silicon, and it powers all the electronics you and I use. Smartphones, computers, AI, everything. Silicon is one of the many elements that can be found on the moon. In fact, 20% of the moon's soil is made of silicon, and these elements are used in some of the most crucial technologies that help fuel economies of countries such as China and the US. Water has also been discovered on the moon, and while one purpose of it is to supply water to people living on the moon in the future, another purpose could be to convert it into gases that are used in rocket fuel. As mentioned in my previous video, these resources from the moon serve as a way for countries to become less dependent upon each other in critical parts of the economy, such as semiconductors. But moreover, those who can extract resources first will see the most economic benefits from this completely new industry. By 2035, it's predicted that this market could grow to $20 billion, with companies such as iSpace betting on this future. But why now? Just like how the Europeans colonized America, colonizing the moon can be broken down into 3 key stages. Stage 1, proof of concept. In this first stage, we need to prove that we can get to these new worlds. Just like how Christopher Columbus showed that we can travel to new continents, we proved in the 1960s and 70s that we can travel to the moon, even if it is for a very short period of time. Over the years, we have expanded our understanding of the moon, its soil, its living conditions, and its history, thanks to rovers, orbiters, and landers. This increased understanding of the moon can help us better prepare for stage 2 of colonization, long-term presence. In this stage, the focus is to establish long-term presence. Just like how the Europeans first created small settlements before colonizing the rest of America, we're first going to create small settlements on the moon, with a small number of people at those settlements. These settlements may be deep inside craters, shielding against meteorites, and may be run almost entirely by engineers and scientists. It's important to note that these settlements will still require investment and resources from Earth, just like how early European settlements were still heavily dependent on their home country. But this will be fixed in Stage 3, self-sufficiency. In Stage 3, we start getting the returns on our investments. New opportunities and new industries open up in space. The settlement becomes self-sufficient, thrives, and provides goods and services back to Earth. This is the end goal that countries are striving to achieve, a colony that opens up new markets and opportunities for people. These moon bases can serve as springboards to get to Mars, but getting to the stage takes decades. Governments want to reap the benefits too quickly, without building a base sustainably, and the big problem is that we don't have the necessary rules set in place to explore responsibly and sustainably. Just like how the era of colonization before us led to the immense exploitation of resources and people, policymakers are scared that we might be heading down a similar path once again. Colonization and exploitation only needs to start from one particular country not following a set of standards. Right now, when it comes to the moon, there are very few, if any, legal frameworks to keep countries accountable about what happens on the moon. As early as 2028, NASA plans to send humans back to the moon as part of the Artemis missions. But what defines the Artemis missions isn't the mission itself, but rather the agreement signed by multiple countries under the Artemis Accords. And here's why it's flawed. Here's Section 11 of the Accords, and what this states is that countries have the ability to set up safety zones around their moon bases. These safety zones would essentially create perimeters, with the scope of these safety zones potentially being changed based on what countries think in the future. While these safety zones under the Accords will only be used in specific situations and will be notified to other countries in advance, it's not hard to see this as a way to skirt around the Outer Space Treaty, specifically not allowing the ability for countries to claim land. The Artemis Accords does include a clause specifically addressing this, but also provides ways for the Accords to be modified in the future and could make this option plausible and justified under the Accords. But the bigger problem is in Section 10, which allows countries to extract resources around their moon bases, and claim that resource extraction does not mean that you're actively claiming land, and thereby once again dodges existing international laws around how we should be using space resources. It's important to note that the Artemis Accords isn't a legal agreement, but rather a set of guidelines that countries have voluntarily agreed to. And it isn't the only one. China and Russia have their own mission called the International Lunar Research Station and their parent organization, and the parent organization follows a similar playbook to that of Artemis. If one country molds their guidelines to allow them to make such claims, such as the claim to certain territory or resources, then a new race would begin to establish as much control on the moon as possible. Prevention starts by creating new laws now. Creating new laws has one huge problem. No one will agree to anything, and it's hard to enforce anything that is passed. The UN is powerless and severely underfunded, and countries have found ways to avoid triggering the UN to rally against them, especially the 5 countries in the UN Security Council: the US, China, Russia, the UK, and France. Even if any space law does get passed, it will still have loopholes that will allow major space players to bypass these laws, thereby allowing them to do essentially whatever they want. The current international legal system is just not ready for the new space age. And we have already seen the consequences. 4 countries have already developed military capabilities in space, such as the ability to shoot down satellites. And this lack of regulation can extend to the moon. As the global supply for resources such as rare earth metals increases due to a number of factors, including AI, companies and governments will look to new places, such as the moon, to exploit.